Morning, everyone. It's an honor to be a part of this very special and wonderful gathering. I would like to thank the organizers for putting an excellent program that exclusively focuses on spatial biology. I am Nachiket Kashikar, and in the next 30 minutes, I will tell you about a new molecular cartography platform that Resolve Biosciences has launched. You might wonder where on earth Resolve is, and that is what are our spatial coordinates. Before you open the next tab in your browser and Google Map it, here is a piece of information. Resolve is headquartered in Monheim, Germany, sandwiched and thus co-localized with both Cologne and Düsseldorf. The point of the matter is you now have a map in front of your eyes, enabling you to visualize from where I am talking to you. It is the same for us biologists here. Why, what, and where. And that leads us to cartography. Cartography is the study and practice of making and using maps. In essence, it combines science, technology, and aesthetics. Cartography models reality in ways that communicate spatial information effectively. At Resolve, we are those cartographers that produce molecular cartography of biological systems. Specifically, we spatially map and quantify the expression of mRNA transcripts at subcellular resolution, at exquisitely high sensitivity, and in a highly multiplexed manner, be it zebrafish retina, be it zebrafish brain, or be it the reptilian brain that you see on the screen, or be it the plant species. Or it could be human clinical samples or other important laboratory model systems such as mouse, rats, and even organoids. Today, I would like to dive deep in some key applications where Resolve's molecular cartography is making significant impact. And we are going to start with. So let's start with the mouse brain. On the right half of the image, you see the coronal section of a mouse brain as obtained from the Allen Brain Reference Atlas, which helps you to identify different regions of the brain such as cortex, and including primary motor areas, somatosensory cortex, piriform areas, visceral areas, hippocampus, and thalamus. On the left side, you see about half of the hemisphere on which we have performed molecular cartography using a panel of 100 genes. We are now in the mammalian cortex, neurons and glia form a pattern structure across 6 different layers whose complex cytoarchitectonic arrangement likely contributes to cognition. Here we have chosen 13 known laminar molecular markers. We see these markers beautifully distributed across the layers. As a case in point, let's focus on calbindin 1, the first one on the list here. In the mouse cortex, it's expected to show dense labeling in layers 1, layer 2, 3, and lighter labeling in superficial layer 5. Now, if we look at the zoomed in image here and look at the cells labeled in dark red, you will realize that molecular cartography perfectly mirrors and recapitulates that expression pattern. Now, here we compared the specificity of our data to the transcriptomic atlas published by the lab of Chris Ponting back in 2011. In the panel that you see here at the top, calibrated layer enrichment probabilities for chosen 5 classical layer markers are represented to the right of the corresponding in situ hybridization. Boxes outlined in black indicate that the classifier predicted the gene to be enriched in that layer. Blue bars beneath of each image represent the highest expression level of that gene in any sample. In the bottom left panel, we show the expression pattern of exactly the same genes using molecular cartography. Please remember that in this experiment, we did not have those genes done one at a time, like you would do, for example, with standard ISH, but in a highly multiplexed manner. If we just, for example, look at, let's say, CUX1, we recaptured exactly the same expression pattern as obtained with standard ISH. Same is for CTGF, which is expressed in a thin layer 6B of the cortex here. So we beautifully recapitulate the expression of all those markers using molecular cartography. This demonstrates high spatial specificity that our technology affords to the researcher. Not only specificity, but importantly sensitivity. Molecular cartography data strongly correlates with bulk RNA-seq with R-square of 0.9. Taken together, molecular cartography is highly specific and sensitive. Now we are going to have a little more in-depth look at the panel of genes that we had. So here we are going to look at 35 genes from that panel of 100 in the same cortical region. These 35 genes represent markers for various cell types found in the brain. Since Cahal's neuron doctrine, it has become apparent that the brain is composed of numerous different types and subtypes of cells. The molecular and cellular biology of such single individual cells in the brain is foundation upon which systems neuroscience attempts to explain complex behavior. In that spirit, what we capture here are different cells such as glutamatergic neurons, which are shown in different shades of red, inhibitory neurons in different shades of yellow, microglia in green, astrocytes in different shades of magenta, and so on. Here we focus on a specific cell type, the inhibitory neuron. That's my favorite neuron type in the brain. It constitutes a small but a crucial neuronal class in the cortex. While these cells comprise only 10 to 20% of the total neuronal population, their connectivity and recruitment are essential in sensation, movement, and cognition. What molecular cartography beautifully allows to capture are distinct subtypes of inhibitory neurons and their spatial locations related to each other, and of course related to other cell types. For example, we distinctly see parvalbumin neurons in green. We see somatostatin neurons in magenta, and much rarer VIP neurons, of course they are VIP, in yellow. The connoisseurs might also appreciate the thin projections that we label purely from mRNA expression locations. This again demonstrates the ultra-high specificity and sensitivity that molecular cartography provides to you. Because of its quantitative nature, each tiny diffraction limited dot that you observed in the images so far is one mRNA molecule. Our technology allows the researchers to perform additional data analysis by getting to cell by gene and gene by cell matrix. To this end, we typically use DAPI as a proxy for cell segmentation. Of course, there are multiple other ways such as membrane staining, specific cell labeling, label-free segmentation. However, for the sake of simplicity and argument, let's focus on DAPI-based segmentation. Here we show such segmentation performed using QuPath. So what we have done essentially, we have taken each DAPI signal as a proxy and we had drawn boundaries 8 microns around the periphery of each DAPI signal. And thus we get thousands of cells, and you can get statistics such as signals per cell or spots per cell and detected genes per cell. Rahul Satij's lab, it allows for UMAP of cells measured by molecular cartography and is colored based on cell subclasses. The heat map that you see in the bottom left essentially shows that the transcripts for respective clusters are specific and clearly allowed to identify key cell subtypes. The heat map is arranged by the size of the clusters and markers that are significantly enriched in these clusters. The GIF on the right side displays projections of such clusters back onto the tissue. Here we visualize spatially segregated cell subtypes. For example, for glutamatergic neurons, we have 11 different clusters. And you might appreciate different population of neurons in the cortex and part of the hippocampus that you see in this image. And as we have displayed here, you can do the same thing for other cell types in the brain. In addition, in the bottom left panel, we extract the fraction of cells for each of the major cell classes. For example, glutamatergic, GABAergic, and non-neuronal. This data nicely corresponds to the known quantification in literature. For example, 53% glutamatergic neurons, about 8% GABAergic neurons, and so on. And of course, the key significance here is that you get all this information in its full spatial glory. Now, what are the applications of molecular cartography in health and disease? Here I would like to provide snippets of work that we have done together with the pharmaceutical company in the context of Alzheimer's disease. Here we look at the amyloid mouse model APPPS1. The two key questions we are asking here are, how do amyloid plaques, the major neuropathology, spatially affect cell distribution, and how does the expression of key regulatory gene changes as a function of distance from the pathology? We specifically looked into 4 signaling pathways: complement, inflammasome, Wnt signaling, and microglial signaling. If you take a bird's eye view and focus your attention to the left side of the screen, what you immediately notice is that the number of neurons, which are shown in cyanish color, is significantly reduced in the APPPS1 cortex when compared to the age-matched wild-type cortex. In addition, we can see yellow blobs in the APPPS1 cortex. which are amyloid plaques which we labeled using a dye called PFT-AA after performing molecular cartography. Thankfully, we do not see such amyloid plaques in the wild-type cortex. Now let's turn your attention to the right, and what you notice is that certain genes, pseudocolored in red, they are enriched in the wild-type cortex, but they are really reduced in the APPPS1 cortex. On the other hand, certain genes, pseudocolored in green, they are really absent in the wild-type cortex, but they are highly enriched in the APPPS1 cortex. So that data looked great, but biology has long ceased to be a descriptive science. And now we can take advantage of the quantitative power that molecular cartography provides when it comes to spatial biology. We looked into the expression of all 100 genes around a plaque pathology. Here again we confirmed the specificity of our data. On the left side of the screen is data obtained using RNAscope, where we see enhanced expression of two genes, namely CST7 and TREM2 in the close vicinity of the plaques. So the plaques that you see here again are in the yellowish tinge. As you know, TREM2 is an important pharmacological target against Alzheimer's disease. This data using RNAscope is good, but not good enough. Two major, let's say, problems are that since the signals are blobs of uneven size and shape, quantification is impossible and multiplexing is quite limited. That's where Resolve's molecular cartography helps you. We not only observed enhanced expression of these genes in the close vicinity of the plaques, but we also could quantify. So we took each plaque. There are about 650 total plaques in 3 different brain slices at the center and drew concentric rings around it of equal area. And we simply counted the number of molecules for each gene in such rings. Examples of 4 genes are shown in the bottom right figure. CST7 and C1qa of the complement pathway are enriched around the plaques, while CYT1 and TUBB3 show diametrically opposite behavior. That is, their expression is diminished around the plaques. In one of the previous slides, I showed you an example of DAPI-based cell segmentation. Here we take advantage of that approach to better understand the cell type specific changes in gene expression while having now the spatial context. With about 33,000 cells, the far left panel shows UMAP co-clustering of wild type and APPPS1 cell types with microglia, astrocytes, neurons and other cell types differentially clustered. The same plot is also displayed with color-coded clusters highlighting the source of cells from wild type or model mice as shown in the middle panel and indicating the distance of cells to the nearest plaque as shown in the far right panel, thus very much bringing the power of spatial analysis to the fore. Because only a few marker genes suffice for cell type identification in our molecular cartography assay, we could compare the effect of amyloid pathology on the relative abundance of different cell types between the two conditions and the precise location of the changes in the occurrence of different cell types. For instance, we found that there is a substantial loss of neurons, and contrarily, there is an enrichment of microglial cells in the Alzheimer's model APPPS1 when compared to the wild type. For example, microglia, so in the wild type mouse, so they are depicted in red, and in the APPPS1 their abundance is depicted in green. The spatial analysis informed us that these changes are primarily in 20 to 30 micrometer zone surrounding each plaque. That is, the sphere of influence of each plaque is about 20 to 30 micrometers. We would not have been able to get such exquisite detailed information without single cell resolution and digital quantification of mRNA transcript. Furthermore, we detected spatial shifts in the population of microglia and astrocytes. In neuroscience, as the name suggests, neurons take the center stage. However, recent evidence suggests that other cell types such as microglia and astrocytes make key contributions to brain function and also consequently in the initiation and progression of diseases such as Alzheimer's. For instance, we found that there are few disease-associated microglia in the wild-type cortex, right? So, for example, if you look at the right side image, you hardly see any disease-associated microglia, which should be seen in dark green, for example. However, in the APPPS1 cortex, in the mouse model, for example, there is a major switch from homeostatic to disease-associated microglia, and those disease-associated microglia cluster around the plaques, the green population that you see here. A similar shift in the spatial distribution was observed in the case of astrocytes. For example, the astrocytic population changes to reactive astrocytes in the epipps1 cortex, and those reactive astrocytes are spatially distributed throughout the tissue. So far, I hope I have convinced you about the power of our technology in neuroscience. I would like to show now you the power of our molecular cartography technology in a couple of other biological systems. Here we are looking at mouse liver. In collaboration with VIB TechWatch in Belgium, we aimed at benchmarking the spatial expression of 100 genes in mouse liver. Across 3 different biological replicates, the reproducibility is very strong, with R-square being close to 1. Also, when we compared our molecular cartography data to published RNA-seq data, we observed a very strong correlation with R-square being 0.97. Here we are focusing on 10 representative genes. As we move away from the blood vessel, these 10 genes display a very peculiar expression pattern. For example, gene VWF and GATA4 closely line the walls of the blood vessel, while cytochrome P450 CYP2E1 that is a drug metabolizing enzyme which is exclusively expressed in hepatocytes surrounding the branches of the hepatic central vein, with high and low expression of these genes as we move away from the central vein. Now we compare the expression of 2 genes, namely CYP2E1 and GLUL, to publish conventional single-channel, single-molecule FISH data from Ido Amit's lab. As I showed you with the brain dataset, we find high spatial specificity in liver as well when we use molecular cartography. If you look at DSM FISH data in the bottom half of the slide, around the central vein are expressed the 2 genes. GLUL is 1 cell layer thick and CYP2E1 is around 10 to 12 cell layers thick. Molecular cartography with its multiplexed approach exactly recapitulates such expression pattern with much superior capabilities towards quantification. Here I am showing you an example of cell type specific markers for liver. As a part of the portal triad, we see portal vein and bile ducts. We beautifully capture the cholangiocytes, the epithelial cells of the bile ducts, solely based on the colocalized expression of 3 genes. Abundance of one cell type does not hamper the detection of rarer genes or cell types. For example, even in the sea of hepatocytes, we observe relatively sparse cells such as Kupffer cells, which are shown here in yellow, and cells of hematopoietic lineage, which can be seen in cyan. As I showed you with the mouse data where we performed DAPI-based cell segmentation, we employed the same strategy when it came to examining the mouse data and to come to cell by gene matrix and gene by cell matrix. So we made again use of the QPath approach where we took each nucleus as a center and we drew boundaries 8 microns around the periphery of each DAPI signal, and thereby we get again thousands and thousands of cells that we segmented from such liver tissues. And again you can get genes per essentially each individual cells or signals per each individual cell. Of note, we looked into the subtypes of hepatocytes and clustering showed that different types of hepatocytes are spatially distributed throughout the liver tissue. In particular, different subtypes around the portal vein and the central vein. Such a differential spatial expression points toward differential function of different subtypes of hepatocytes. Having shown you the power of our technology to uncover, visualize and quantify so far hidden spatial information in neuroscience and hepatology, I would like to briefly turn my attention to oncology. As we all know, understanding the biology of cancer is a big unmet need. Cancer inherently is a disease that has both time and space dimensions. And it is important to understand these both dimensions at highest possible granularity of time and space. Specifically, we need to understand the tumor molecular microenvironment at single cell resolution. To illustrate that approach, here we have performed molecular cartography on human breast cancer tissue obtained from 2 different patient donors. Using a set of genes, we can distinguish different microenvironments of the tumor, and we can also compare 2 different tumors obtained from these 2 different patients. As I alluded to before, when it comes to studying tumor biology, it is important to have single cell resolution to fully recapture the tumor microenvironment. Each tumor is different, and each cell in a tumor comes with distinct molecular repertoire. As shown in this example, molecular cartography provides an avenue to investigate the tumor microenvironment in exquisite spatial detail to study different cell types, subtypes, and colocalization pattern of different genes. Resolve's molecular cartography technology is in the service of all the researchers around the world to help them break barriers in life science research. Be it to have near understanding of the biology behind devastating neurological disorders such as Alzheimer's and Parkinson's disease, or investigate spatial context of tumor and non-tumor cells, or to understand the origin of drug-tolerant drug persister cells, or to deepen our understanding of developmental biology using, let's say, typical model systems such as mouse, zebrafish, or worms, or even novel model systems such as iPSC-derived organoids. Consequently, with this approach, we shall also better understand various different developmental disorders. We are currently living in a pandemic caused by SARS-CoV-2. It is an infectious disease, not only for SARS-CoV-2, but also when we consider other known infectious diseases or the new ones that will potentially affect the mankind, we need to better understand the logic behind the spread of infection in affected tissues. The underlying theme, whether you are talking about neurological disorders, oncology, developmental biology, infectious diseases, and even plants, right? So the underlying theme is that the molecular cartography provides a new, unique opportunity to study the tissue microenvironments in health, disease, and development. Now let's turn our attention to the technology itself. How does it work? What are its features, and why should you use it? We have a unique differentiation based on three vectors: highest sensitivity and specificity that matches with conventional single molecule FISH, which allows not only to detect but quantify the expression of the rarest of rare genes. And I showed you that by an example in liver data and also in the mouse brain data. Exquisite resolution that allows to identify the similarities and differences between two neighboring cells and also the changes happening within a cell at different organelles. And I showed you the power of single cell resolution when we looked into the example of inhibitory neurons, where you could really differentiate between two subtypes of neighboring inhibitory neurons, for example VIP and somatostatin. And number 3 is tissue integrity. That is, even after performing molecular cartography on a given tissue sample, the tissue remains perfectly intact. That allows for additional dye labeling or immunohistochemistry approaches. And we looked into that as an example when we labeled the amyloid plaques using PFT-AA. Thus, our FISH-based technology with combinatorial color coding is superior by several notches with other technologies based on barcoding or sequencing, or the ones that require amplification or any sort of capture. To briefly illustrate and explain how the technology works, we typically start with a cryosection which is 10 microns thick, or even a cell culture sample which is adhered to glass. We design gene-specific probes using Resolve's own probe design algorithm that ensures highest specificity and fidelity of signal detection. We hybridize these gene-specific probes to the tissue of interest, and we color the gene-specific probes using fluorescent molecules through a proprietary, unique, patent-filed combinatorial color coding process. We image the samples throughout the 10 micron thick tissue, then we decolorize the probes. This cycle of colorization, imaging, and decolorization is repeated a few times, and all this happens in a fully automated device with little user intervention. So what are the unique new features that Resolve's molecular cartography technology, which essentially helps to bring a transformative differentiation and provide unique opportunities to the researcher? We provide high multiplexing with up to 100 genes simultaneously with fully customizable choice of genes. Of course, we have certain panels for certain specific signaling pathways or disease areas, but again, we know that science requires unique approaches when choosing different genes and so on. So the choice of panels is fully customizable, and if you, for example, are unsure of which genes to choose, we are certainly able to guide you there. The technology allows for exquisite cellular and subcellular resolution, and that with 2 and 3 dimensional information. So 3 dimensional information is readily available because from a given 10 micron thick tissue, we take multiple Z sections. Typically, we present that information in 2 dimensions. Having said that, if you really want to have that 3-dimensional information throughout that thickness of the tissue, it is available. So for example, you can construct a single neuron or a single cell in completely 3-dimensional space just based on the information that we provide. As it is an imaging based technology, it's going to generate huge amount of data, but you do not get scared about that. We have made it very easy for the end user by developing a fully automated end-to-end bioinformatics workflow. It provides the spot coordinates in X, Y, and Z for each signal detected with its gene identity. The interactive software allows for cell segmentation, providing a gene by cell and cell by gene matrix, as we have seen before. With the software, you can also select areas of your choice, whether it's a tissue, whether it is a cell, or whether it's a group of cells. And you can also perform additional co-localization analysis, for example, to analyze the neighborhood relationship between certain group of transcripts. Importantly, each spot that you see in the image is one transcript. So you really get that digital quantification. And we have seen the power of that digital quantification in the context of Alzheimer's disease. As the tissue remains intact, you can do multiplexing. Now here we are using the term multiplexing in a different context, in a sense that because the tissue remains perfectly intact, you can, after performing molecular cartography, you can perform additional dye labeling or additional immunohistochemistry using validated antibodies. The throughput is quite magnificent in the sense that we can do 24 samples in parallel with 100 genes per sample, or you can choose different panel of 100 genes for each of those 24 samples. So that throughput is really going to allow you to do reproducible experiments and do multiple biological replicates, or even that's really important when you are doing CRISPR screening or drug screening approaches. As we talked a lot about sensitivity, so I would like to here highlight that we do not use any enzymes, nor we use any capture, and we do not have any amplification as well. So you essentially get rid of some of the stochasticity or the stochasticity that comes with some of these processes, and we do not lose sensitivity because of that. As it is a single molecule FISH method, we are shooting at sensitivity in the range of 95 to 100%. When it comes to sample types, I've already shown you a lot of examples when it came to neuroscience, oncology, hepatology, and so on. But we are not limited to typical model systems. Of course, we are fantastic when it comes to mouse, rat, and human tissues, which are typical model systems in any academic or pharmaceutical lab. But in addition, we can also implement our molecular cartography technology on organoids, zebrafish, plant samples, and so on. Again, when it comes to different types of tissues, there is no real limitation. So we have successfully validated the technology in brain, kidney, liver, spleen, and so on. And cell cultures are really straightforward. For example, we have successfully validated technology in HEK cells, HeLa cells, MDCK cells, neurons, and even immortalized astrocyte cultures. Resolve is at the forefront of the spatial biology revolution. We have just concluded our oversubscribed early access program and are launching full commercial service from our headquarters in Germany to enable researchers to answer their most pressing scientific questions, whether it is for basic science, translational science, or if it is coming from academic or pharmaceutical setting. We are also launching the full commercial service from our San Jose facility in the US in the coming weeks, and later this year we shall expand to APAC. We look forward to talking to you. Please visit our website resolve-biosciences.com. Follow us on Twitter and LinkedIn for updates and exciting news from Resolve. Thank you.